I started seeing the US in such a different light. This is all a fucking lie that's been sold to me since I was a kid. Growing up in Los Angeles, I was always told that the US is a melting pot. It was just something that we were taught to be proud of, how the US is a conglomerate of different cultures, different foods, and different types of people from all over the world that come together and build this life together in America, and everyone has this American dream. Regardless of which culture you come from, we all happily live together and we all strive for the same thing: a house with a white picket fence, a dog, a family, and you get my point. And it's taught to us in such a young age to be proud of that. America is such a melting pot where cultures come together, they blend, and then they evolve. And in some ways it felt true, because growing up in Los Angeles, you've got every culture imaginable within a 10-mile radius. I went to school with kids that had families from Korea, from Mexico, from Vietnam, Nigeria, from India, and I had an Armenian friend. So it was to the point where you could eat pupusas, tacos, pho, falafel, Korean barbecue, like all in one day. It felt rich, it felt texture, it felt colorful. But even with all that around me, I didn't see the division. I thought back then that proximity meant connection. And then I remember something happened at the university which changed my perspective forever. It changed how I started viewing the US, like the lie that's been sold to us. So at university, I was taking this class, communications class. So we had to write an essay, but we had to do it in a group. So in my group, it was me, being Indian. I was working with a Chinese girl, there was an African American boy, and a white American girl. And our viewpoint on this was so different. It was one of the most difficult assignments that I had to complete, and the subject was separatism. And to be honest, I didn't even know what that word fucking meant. Once I looked up the definition of separatism, that's when I was like, this is all a fucking lie that's been sold to me since I was a kid. I started seeing the US in such a different light. I started noticing things that I never paid attention to before, like how everyone around me was stuck with their own kind. They lived in their own bubble, even in the most diverse settings. Sure, we all shared the space. I mean, we all lived in the same city, but we only shared the space. We never shared our lives. I started thinking that maybe this is how the world works. I thought that maybe being multicultural means that everyone sticks to their own kind, but then cohesively kind of live together in the same space. So for the longest time, I thought diversity meant just that. But then I traveled to Europe, and oh my God, that is when everything shifted for me. So my first time in Europe, I remember getting off the plane, and immediately I felt like I could hear the world. I heard so many different languages, and this is something that's still true to today. Every time we go back, even now, the first thing I always notice is there's so many different languages that I hear. Then you hear the same announcement in like friggin' 4 different languages. Then you see strangers translating, helping other people. And I remember thinking, this is so different. Yes, it was diverse in theory, but this time I felt it and I heard it. So it was just such a different feeling of being in an environment that really felt diverse rather than just on paper being diverse. And then as I started traveling through cities, I went to London, I went to Amsterdam, I went to Berlin, and then I realized this wasn't just at the airport. That feeling that I had at the airport continued through, and it felt like cultures weren't just coexisting, they were blending. And walking around, I saw couples from different backgrounds. I saw a group of friends switching between different languages, and restaurants fusing traditions, which felt authentic and not performative. And what stuck with me back then was that how comfortable it felt, how real it felt. It didn't feel like it was a special occasion or a festival. It just felt like normal. Like you can have multiple cultures coexist together, but the real magic happens when cultures start blending together, when people interact, when people learn from each other's cultures, when people appreciate each other's cultures and celebrate it and share it. not just coexist. And at that moment, that's when this contrast hit me. I compared it to back home here in the USA. In the USA, although we've been told for years and years that USA is such a melting pot, but at that point I realized that this is not really a melting pot. It's like everyone kind of lives in their own separate island, but we don't really mingle. Everyone kind of keeps to their own kind. And then it got me thinking about this idea, which has been floating around for years, which has also bothered me for so many years, is this entire idea of cultural appropriation, which honestly bugs the shit out of me. So this is a term which is thrown out a lot here in the USA. I've seen it catch on in Germany as well. I hope it doesn't get to the point of this ridiculousness that we have here in the USA. Growing up, the message was always celebrate cultures. Celebrate not just your own culture, but other people's cultures as well. But I remember for Halloween, one of my sister's friend, she was white American, and she was like, oh my God, I want to be an Indian princess. So she wore the Indian bridal outfit. To her, that was like a princess outfit. And my sister helped her buy the outfit because she was so excited that, her friend is going to wear this Indian outfit. But that was a vibe back then. And they weren't afraid of exploring each other's cultures, and people weren't offended if someone shared their culture. It felt open, it felt curious, it felt welcoming. But then along the way, something shifted. It became more like, well, no, you cannot have this, and you cannot wear this, and you cannot say this. You're not allowed to use this word because this is not yours. You don't own it. I own it. So until I give you permission, you are not allowed to participate in this. And I'm not saying that these conversations aren't important, because they are important. This idea of cultural appropriation started getting traction in the US in the 80s and 90s. The original intent, I feel, was valid. It was about calling out dominant groups, mainly white Americans, for borrowing and stealing from marginalized cultures without understanding, without respect, and profiting from stealing their culture. But somewhere along the way, this entire conversation started getting messy. It shifted from talking about power dynamics and intent to, well, now you cannot touch anything that doesn't belong to you. If it's not from your culture, you're not allowed to use it, touch it, feel it, experience it. And to me, this created this entire new world of division. But here's the thing, if we tell each other that we're not allowed to share our cultures, that we need permission to appreciate anything outside of our own bubble, what kind of world are we creating? That's not unity, that's not community, that's segregation. And ironically, it's the opposite of what a culture is meant to do. Culture is meant to connect us. It's meant to evolve. It's meant to bring us together, to share. If everyone just stays in their own corner, too afraid to, mingle, then what's left? It's not fun anymore. So every time I'm in Europe, and honestly, even in India, I see this play out very differently. People don't stay in their own cultural lane. They share the cultural lane, and they share it openly and happily. And when I go to Germany, when I wear a lederhosen, which is very rare, but I do wear it sometimes, I feel weird about wearing it, only because it's been ingrained in my head now that living in here in the USA, it's like anytime I wear something that doesn't belong in my culture, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. There, no one has a freaking issue. It's the opposite. My German family and my German friends are constantly asking me to wear the lederhosen, even when we go to a beer garden. It's very rare that I wear it. That's something I need to work on. See, America, you've screwed me up. So now here is the big question. If we do want to share cultures, if we do want to be part of something bigger, and we are genuinely curious about other people's culture, what's the right way to do it? I don't think the answer is to stop engaging. And I definitely don't think the answer is to be scared to try it. I think the key is intent, the context, and respect. Are you mocking a culture, or are you honoring it? Are you using someone's culture for profit or trend chasing? Or are you engaging out of genuine curiosity? And that's the difference. If you think about these things, then you can turn appropriation into appreciation. I don't think culture is meant to divide us. Culture is meant to connect us. It's meant to teach us. It's meant to bring us closer together, to remind us that even though we come from different backgrounds, that at the end of the day, we're still human. We all have stories to tell. We all have stories to share with each other. And through those stories, we find connection, we find empathy, we find a sense of belonging, and we create meaning in this world together. And this is something I've always believed, that culture isn't something like a physical product that you inherit. Like, you don't physically own this. And yes, of course, we need to protect it from it being mocked, it being used in the next dance trend on TikTok where it loses its context completely. But it's also not meant to be held on so tightly and that you build walls around it and to keep it safeguarded. It needs to live, it needs to breathe, it needs to be shared. Because sharing culture is actually not the problem. It might actually be the solution. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on culture appropriation. If you're watching from Germany, or actually really any part of Europe, let me know how this idea of culture appropriation is playing out in your part of the world. And I will see you guys in the next video.